The surface of Avalis 9 stretched endlessly under a pale blue glow. Dust floated gently in the thin air, settling like soft mist around broken towers and forgotten domes. Once, long ago, this moon had been alive with voices, machines, and light. Now it was quiet, and only one human stood among its ruins. Rian, a young explorer from Earth's Frontier Division, had landed only a few hours ago. His ship rested on a flat plain behind him, silver wings folded like a bird at rest. He wore a light exploration suit, marked with the symbol of the Human Alliance. In his hand, a small device blinked softly, a signal tracker tuned to old frequencies. He had been sent to locate data from the Avalis outpost, an ancient human station built during the last phase of the galactic era. The mission was not special. Many explorers were sent to recover pieces of history from forgotten worlds. Most found nothing but rocks and silence. Yet, from the moment Rian stepped onto the surface, he felt that this world was different. The air, thin as it was, seemed to hum faintly, as if carrying a song just beyond hearing. He walked across the plain, the dust crunching under his boots. His visor displayed the coordinates of the lost station. The tracker in his hand showed a faint pulse, not steady but alive, like a heartbeat buried beneath layers of time. As he neared a ridge, he saw the outpost at last, half collapsed, its metal walls covered in frost and ash. The structure leaned against a cracked mountain of stone. It looked fragile, as if one more storm could carry it away. Yet the signal grew stronger here. Rian entered through a torn gate. Inside, the corridors were dark and narrow. Ice crystals covered the walls, shining faintly under the light from his helmet. The silence pressed against him. His every breath sounded loud, echoing through empty halls. He found the control room after a slow walk. Most screens were dead, the panels burned or corroded. Only one console still flickered, its surface glowing weakly with old energy. Rian brushed the dust away and placed his scanner over the panel. A soft tone filled the air. The console came to life, trembling with static. Then through the speakers a faint voice began to play, gentle, distant, and full of sorrow. "Have you forgotten me?" Rian froze. The words were in human language, yet the tone carried a strange melody. It was not mechanical. It sounded alive. The message repeated again, softer this time, each word trembling through the static. "Have you forgotten me?" For a long moment, Rian stood still. He looked around the room, half expecting someone to appear. There was only the hum of the console and the whisper of the voice. He replayed the recording. The same words came again, but he noticed something else. Faint harmonics under the speech, a kind of echo made of musical notes. His training told him this was not human technology. It belonged to the Seralith, an alien race that had vanished centuries ago. Avalis 9 had once been part of their territory before humans settled here. The Seralith were known for their beautiful language of light and sound. They had shared science with humans for a time, until the Great Separation drove the two species apart. After that contact was lost, the Seralith were thought to have disappeared into the deep reaches of space. So why was there a Seralith voice speaking through a human console? Rian ran the signal through his translator, but the system found no match. Then something unusual appeared on his visor screen, an encoded tag inside the audio file. He leaned closer, frowning. The tag contained a human identifier, one that matched his own name. "Impossible," he whispered. He checked again. The code was old, older than his birth, but the letters were clear. Someone, or something, had embedded his name into the recording long before he ever set foot on this moon. The console began to flicker faster, lights moving across the walls like living fireflies. The voice spoke again, almost pleading this time. "You promised you would return." Rian felt his heartbeat quicken. He stepped back and looked around the control room once more. Nothing moved. The shadows were still. Yet he could not shake the feeling that someone or something was here with him. He recorded the signal and stored it in his device. Then he left the outpost and climbed the ridge outside. The night sky of Avalis 9 was wide and deep. The planet below shone in soft blue and gold. It was beautiful and lonely at the same time. He sat on a rock, the recorder still playing quietly in his hand. The voice seemed to float in the air around him, blending with the wind. "Have you forgotten me?" The words touched something inside him, something buried. He did not know why, but the tone of the voice felt familiar. He tried to remember if he had ever heard it before. He had studied many alien languages, but none had ever sounded like this, It carried warmth, sadness, and a strange hope. Back in his ship, Ryan uploaded the data to the main computer. The system confirmed the signal was ancient, nearly 700 years old. That made no sense. The voice was clear, too human, too recent. The timestamp inside the file matched no known date. The computer displayed a message. Temporal distortion detected. Ryan stared at the screen. He had read about distorted signals that traveled through folded space, where time did not move the same way. But those were only theories. Could this voice be a message from the past or something else entirely? He replayed the signal once more. This time he noticed a rhythm between the words, almost like a heartbeat. The voice carried both human emotion and alien resonance. He felt drawn to it in a way he could not explain. He decided to stay longer on Avelis 9. The mission report could wait. He needed to know where the voice came from. The next day, Ryan followed the direction of the harmonic wave that underlay the transmission. It led him away from the outpost across the frozen plains toward a series of crystal hills. As he walked, the air grew warmer, and faint lights shimmered beneath the ice. It was as if the planet itself remembered something. At the base of the largest hill, he found an opening, a tunnel made of translucent stone, glowing faintly with inner light. He hesitated, then stepped inside. The walls pulsed with soft colors that matched the rhythm of the voice. The deeper he went, the stronger the hum became. It was not frightening, only strange and beautiful. Finally, he reached a wide chamber. In its center stood a tall structure shaped like a flower of glass, each petal inscribed with flowing symbols. The petals formed a circle around a single column of light. Inside that light, patterns moved slowly like ripples in water. Ryan approached with care. His suit sensors detected faint energy but no danger. He lifted his recorder and played the message again. The moment the voice filled the chamber, the light column brightened. The patterns within it changed shape, forming what looked like a figure, tall, graceful, and almost human. The voice spoke again, clear and near. "Have you forgotten me?" The light shimmered. The figure took a step forward, still made of pure radiance. It tilted its head as if studying him. Ryan stood frozen, unsure if he was dreaming. The figure raised a hand and symbols glowed brighter around the chamber walls. The sound of the voice softened, almost like a sigh. Then for the first time, Ryan heard a name hidden between the tones. Solara. The figure faded slightly but did not disappear. It seemed to wait, expecting an answer. Ryan opened his mouth but found no words. His throat felt dry and his mind filled with questions. Who was Solara? Why did she know his name? How could a message this old still respond to him? The light dimmed, leaving only a soft glow around the chamber. The voice whispered once more, now gentle as wind through leaves. You promised you would return. Then silence returned, deep and calm. Ryan stood there for a long time, listening to the echoes fade. He felt both wonder and confusion. The message was not random. It was meant for him. Somewhere in the vast history between humans and the Serolith, a connection had been made, one that had waited through centuries to be remembered. He left the chamber slowly, turning back once before stepping into the open air. The stars above Avelis 9 burned bright and steady. For the first time in his career, Ryan did not feel like an explorer searching for lost data. He felt like a messenger walking into a forgotten story. As he returned to his ship, the voice stayed with him. Every sound of the wind seemed to carry its echo. Each step he took made the feeling stronger. It was not fear. It was recognition. Ryan looked up at the glowing sky and whispered softly as if speaking to someone he once knew. No, I haven't forgotten you. Inside the ship, the console lights flickered in answer. The message played once more on its own, the same question repeating with a warmth that no machine should possess. Have you forgotten me? Ryan smiled faintly, though he did not understand why. He sat in the pilot's seat, staring out at the quiet moon, and for the first time since he arrived, the silence did not feel empty. It felt alive, waiting. The next morning on Avelis 9 was pale and still. The soft light from the nearby planet gave the land a silver glow. Ryan had hardly slept. The memory of the glowing chamber and the voice of Solara stayed in his thoughts all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that same question drifting through his mind. Have you forgotten me? He sat in the ship's control seat, staring at the data on his main screen. The signal he had recorded was running through a long scan. The computer's voice spoke calmly, reporting its findings. Frequency pattern unknown. Partial match with Serolith communication forms. Message code includes human signature identifier. R1AN. Ryan leaned forward. Show message structure. The screen displayed a series of curved lines, almost like musical waves. He traced the patterns with his finger on the glass. They moved in a way that looked alive. He had studied hundreds of alien signals, but nothing like this. Most alien languages were built on fixed logic or mathematical precision. This one had rhythm, tone, and something that felt emotional. The machine paused, then spoke again. Signal origin estimated at deep subsurface coordinates. Possible data vault detected. A data vault meant more recordings, maybe even memory storage. Ryan looked at the coordinates. They pointed to a region further south near a canyon covered by frozen mist. He decided he had to go. He packed a few supplies and stepped out onto the silver plain once more. The sky was clear. The light from the nearby sun made the crystals on the ground shine like glass. Each step he took left a faint print that shimmered before fading away. The wind moved gently, carrying a low hum that almost sounded like music. The journey took several hours. His tracker led him down a slope into a narrow valley. The ground here was softer, made of fine dust that glowed faintly under his boots. At the far end, hidden by the mist, he found what looked like a gate of stone half buried in ice. Symbols were carved into its surface. He brushed the frost away with his gloved hand. The shapes were flowing and delicate. He recognized them from the glowing chamber. Serolith symbols. They spoke of memory, unity, and song. When Ryan touched the gate, a soft vibration ran through the air. The symbols lit up in a ring around his hand. A moment later, the ice melted away in a slow wave of light. The gate opened inward, revealing a tunnel that led down into darkness. He entered with his lamp raised. The walls were smooth, almost mirror-like, reflecting faint images of his face as he passed. The tunnel led to a large circular room with a single platform at its center. On the platform stood a crystal sphere about the size of his head. Inside the sphere, light flowed slowly, changing color from silver to gold. Ryan walked closer. His suit sensors showed no danger. He reached out and touched the surface. It was warm, not cold like the rest of the place. As soon as his fingers brushed it, the sphere began to glow brighter. A sound filled the chamber. The same soft voice he had heard before, clear and near. "Ryan," it said gently. "You came back." He stepped back in surprise. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. The sphere's light grew stronger until it filled the room. Shapes began to form within it, flowing patterns that slowly became a figure of light. It was the same figure he had seen before in the crystal chamber, tall and graceful, eyes glowing with calm warmth. "I am Solara," the voice said. "I have waited for you." Ryan stared at her. She looked almost human, though her skin shimmered like glass touched by moonlight. Her expression was kind, but her eyes carried deep sadness. "I don't understand," Ryan said. "You keep saying I came back." "We have never met," Solara tilted her head. "You do not remember." "It was expected. The memory seal was placed to keep you safe." "Safe from what?" he asked. "From forgetting who you were meant to be," she answered softly. "But it seems forgetting happened anyway." Ryan frowned. "I'm only an explorer. I came here because of a signal. That's all." Solara smiled faintly. "That signal was my voice. I sent it long ago through the silence between stars. It was meant for you, and only you could hear it." Her words made no sense to him, yet something deep inside began to stir. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, a pull toward her voice. He wanted to believe her even though logic told him not to. Solara stepped closer, her form still made of light. "Do you remember the war between our people?" she asked. Ryan shook his head. "That was centuries ago. It's only history." Her voice grew softer. "It was not just history for me. I was there. So were you." He stared at her in silence. The room seemed to fade around them, leaving only her glowing presence and his echoing heartbeat. Solara raised her hand and the air shimmered like water. Images appeared. Not holograms, but visions that felt alive. He saw two figures standing on a high balcony under twin suns. One was clearly Solara, her light body wrapped in silver cloth. The other was a human man in an older style of suit, his face half hidden by shadow. They called him Ryan. Solara said softly. He was part of the Unity program, the last link between human and Seralith. The scene shifted. The two figures reached out to each other, hands almost touching. A ring of light surrounded them. Then the vision broke apart, replaced by bright white. Rian gasped and stepped back. His heart raced. That can't be me. I'm not that old. Solara looked at him with calm eyes. You are not the same body, but the same spirit. When your people chose to end the alliance, I preserved what was left of you here. Your mind was placed in the human system that came later. The signal I sent was meant to awaken that memory. Ryan shook his head slowly. You're saying I'm some kind of copy. I am saying you were part of a promise, she said gently. You promised to return when peace was possible again. The silence that followed was long and heavy. Ryan looked down at the glowing floor. He could feel something inside him change, as if the truth was close but still hidden behind a thin wall of fog. He took a slow breath. If what you say is true, why now? Why call me back after so long? Solara turned toward the wall. Light flowed across it, forming a map of the galaxy. Whole regions blinked with faint golden marks. Because the silence between our worlds is ending, she said. Your people have begun to search again. They have forgotten our name. But their ships travel close to our old stars. If they come without memory, the same mistakes will return. Her voice softened again. I needed you to remember before they arrive. Ryan stared at the map. He thought of Earth, of the busy colonies filled with noise and pride. He imagined them sending ships out again, not knowing what waited. He turned back to her. If I really was part of this, if I was meant to build peace, what can I do now? I'm just one person. One person is enough, she said with a small smile. You once proved that. You carried the light of two worlds within you. You can do so again. Rian looked at her glowing figure, unsure what to say. Part of him wanted to leave, to run back to his ship and pretend none of this was real. But another part, stronger and deeper, wanted to stay. He remembered the first moment he had heard her voice in the outpost. The feeling of warmth, the sound of her tone, the strange peace that followed. He realized now that the feeling had not been fear or confusion. It had been recognition. Solara's light dimmed slightly. My energy is fading, she said. The vault can only hold me for a little while. But I can give you the rest of the memory. She placed her hand over the crystal sphere. Light flowed from her fingers into it, then from the sphere into the air around Rian. Tiny shapes of light drifted toward him, landing gently on his chest and head. The moment they touched him, he felt a rush of warmth. Images filled his mind. Stars falling, songs in alien voices, the promise made beneath twin suns. He saw himself standing beside Solara, smiling as she reached out her hand. He heard his own voice say, No matter what time takes from us, I will find you again. When the light faded, Ryan stood quietly, breathing slowly. He felt tears in his eyes, though he did not understand why. Solara's voice was soft and kind. Now you remember a part of it, she said. There is still more to find. Go to the southern temple. The rest waits there. Ryan nodded, unable to speak. The light around her began to fade. Before it disappeared completely, she spoke once more. Do not be afraid of what you remember. The past is not gone. It only sleeps. The light vanished and the room grew dim again. The crystal sphere stood still and silent. Rian looked around, the echo of her words still in his mind. The past was not gone. It only slept. He turned and began walking back toward the tunnel. The path ahead was dark, but his steps were steady. He no longer felt alone. Outside, the wind carried a faint melody across the plains, the same tune that had followed him since the first day. He looked up at the sky and whispered softly, I remember now, Solara. And far above, beyond the thin clouds, the stars seemed to shimmer in answer. The sky above Avalis 9 was calm as Ryan walked back toward his ship. The faint glow from the frozen plain shone like silver dust beneath his boots. The sound of the wind followed him, soft and steady, carrying with it a strange rhythm that felt like a song. His mind was still filled with the image of Solara, her glowing figure and her voice that seemed to speak both from the past and from his own heart. He entered the ship and removed his helmet. The air inside smelled of metal and clean filters. He sat down in the pilot's chair and placed his hands on the control desk, staring at nothing for a long moment. He tried to think clearly, but everything around him seemed unreal. He had come here on a simple recovery mission. Now he was being told that he was connected to an alien princess who had lived centuries ago. He opened the ship's log and began to type his report. Signal discovered from unknown source. Contains human identifier R1AN. Encountered projection of alien being named Solara. Communication consistent with Seraph origin. Possible link to Unity program from pre-separation era. He stopped writing. The words felt small compared to what he had just experienced. He leaned back and rubbed his eyes. A small screen beside him displayed the last message from Solara, her image frozen in light. He watched it for a while, feeling a quiet ache in his chest. "Do not be afraid of what you remember," she had said. But what did he really remember? Were those visions his own memories or someone else's? Ryan activated the ship's memory reader. It could project internal thoughts into a visible pattern of light. He wanted to see what his mind was holding. The machine hummed softly, scanning his neural signals. A series of lights formed above the console. At first they were faint and shapeless. Then they began to take form. A pattern of stars, a wide balcony, and two figures standing together beneath twin suns. He saw himself again, or someone who looked like him. The same face, though older and more tired. Solara stood beside him, smiling softly. They were talking, but he could not hear the words. Then the stars faded, replaced by a bright field of gold. The light broke apart, leaving only silence. Ryan sat there quietly, staring at the empty space where the image had been. The memory felt so real that his heart still beat faster. It was as if he had lived another life and had just seen a piece of it again. He whispered to himself, "Was that really me?" The computer responded in its calm voice. Memory fragments detected. Origin unknown. Neural signature match 98% identical to current subject. He looked up sharply. "You're saying these memories belong to me?" "Affirmative," the system replied. "Embedded memory layer predates subject's known lifetime. Possible transfer or preservation event." Ryan leaned forward, thinking about Solara's words. She had said his spirit had been preserved. Could she have meant this, a stored memory, carried through generations? He stood and began pacing the small cabin. He felt restless, uncertain, yet strangely alive. He wanted to know the truth. Solara had told him to go to the southern temple. That was where the rest of the memory waited. Ryan looked out through the window of the ship. The southern horizon was hidden by soft mist that glowed faintly in the sunlight. Somewhere out there was the answer to who he truly was. He took a deep breath and began preparing for the journey. The route to the southern temple was long and rough. The surface was cracked with deep ravines and covered in thin layers of crystal dust. Ryan guided his small hover vehicle across the plains. The hum of its engines echoed softly in the open air. Above him, the stars could still be seen even in daylight, faint and steady. As he moved farther south, the air grew warmer, and the ground began to shine with a gentle golden light. It was as if the planet itself remembered something ancient. His scanner beeped slowly, showing stronger energy signals ahead. The temple was near. He reached it after several hours. The building rose out of the ground like a mountain of glass. It was shaped like a spiral, each layer shining with colors that changed as he moved. At the base of the structure stood an entrance made of smooth stone. Strange symbols ran across its surface, glowing softly as he approached. Ryan placed his hand on the symbols. The stone felt warm under his glove. The door opened silently, revealing a wide hall filled with floating lights. They moved gently through the air like fireflies, illuminating walls covered with carvings. The carvings showed both human and Seraph figures standing together, holding objects that looked like stars. As he walked through the hall, Ryan felt the same warmth he had felt near Solara's presence. The air seemed alive, carrying faint whispers that blended with the hum of the lights. It was peaceful and strange at the same time. At the end of the hall stood a circular room with a high dome. In the center was a pool of clear water. Around it were 6 pillars, each one carved with both human and alien symbols. The water glowed softly from below, as if light was rising through it from deep beneath the floor. Ryan stepped closer and looked down into the water. He saw his own reflection, but it was not just his face. Behind his reflection appeared the same man from his vision, the one who had stood with Solara under the twin suns. The two faces overlapped, becoming one. The voice of Solara filled the chamber again. "You have come just as before." Her figure appeared above the pool, soft and bright. She looked the same as before, though her light was gentler now. Ryan spoke quietly. "You said I was part of a promise. I need to know what that means, Solara nodded. When our worlds were near the end of peace, we tried to build something new, a bridge of memory between human and Seralith. You and I were chosen to be that bridge. We shared thought and spirit. But when war came, your people turned away. You were lost to time, and I was left here to guard what remained. Ryan listened, trying to absorb her words. So the memories I saw, the visions, they were from that time? Yes, she said softly. Your human body now is new, but the essence inside you carries the same pattern. You are the echo of the first Ryan. He looked at his reflection again. If that is true, then what do I do now? I cannot change the past, Solara smiled faintly. You do not need to change it. You need to remember it. Memory is the bridge that will save your world and mine. Without memory, both will repeat the same mistakes. Ryan thought of Earth, of how humans explored without pause, often forgetting what had come before. He thought of the silence that had followed the Seralith disappearance. Maybe humanity had chosen to forget. Solara raised her hand and the pillars around them began to glow brighter. The water in the pool rippled, forming circles of light. The rest of your memory is here, she said. If you wish to remember, place your hand in the water. Ryan hesitated for a moment, then knelt beside the pool. He reached out slowly and touched the glowing surface. The water was warm, almost alive. Light spread from his hand across the pool, then rose into the air. He saw visions again, the great cities of the Seralith, shining towers made of light and song. Humans and Seralith working side by side, building something greater than either could alone. Then came a moment of sadness. Separation, misunderstanding, and distance growing between stars. He saw himself and Solara standing on that same balcony. She was smiling, though tears filled her bright eyes. He heard his own voice speak clearly now. If time takes everything, I will still find you. We will not forget. Then the vision faded. Ryan opened his eyes. The light around him dimmed and the pool became still again. He felt calm but changed. He understood now that his journey was not only about discovery but about remembrance. Solara's voice returned, softer than before. Now you know why I called you. The unity we began is not finished. The next age is near. Humanity will soon return to these stars, and they must not come with empty hearts. You must carry our story to them. Ryan stood slowly. I will try, he said. But how can I prove this to them? They will not believe me. Solara's light flickered gently like a candle in wind. Truth does not need proof. It needs courage to be spoken. You have that courage. Her image began to fade once more, leaving behind only a soft golden light that filled the room. Ryan stood in silence for a long moment. The air felt still yet alive with quiet energy. He looked down at the pool one last time. His reflection was his own again, but his eyes seemed brighter, as if carrying the light of the stars he had just seen. He turned and walked toward the exit. As he stepped into the open air, the sky above Avelis 9 glowed with gentle color. The mist was fading and the sunlight reflected off the crystal ground like waves of gold. Rian looked up at the stars. He felt no confusion now, only purpose. Somewhere beyond those stars, humanity was still searching. Soon they would come this way again. When they did, he would be ready to remind them of what they had once shared. Not power, not conquest, but unity and remembrance. As he climbed into his vehicle and started back toward his ship, the wind carried a faint echo across the plains, a whisper that sounded like music. He listened quietly. The voice of Solara seemed to travel with the wind. We were never meant to forget, Ryan. We were meant to begin again. Ryan smiled softly and looked toward the horizon where light met sky. Then we will begin again, he said. The vehicle rose gently above the ground, moving north toward the ship. Behind him, the temple shimmered under the golden sun, shining like a living memory of peace. The journey back to the northern plains of Avelis 9 was quiet, yet alive with possibility. Ryan guided his hover vehicle smoothly over the crystal dust. The wind carried a faint echo of Solara's voice, soft and gentle, like a song brushing across the surface of the moon. He could not explain why, but he felt as if she were walking beside him, unseen yet very present. As he approached his ship, the memory of the temple and the pool lingered in his mind. The images of the shared past, the unity between humans and Seralith, were vivid and real. For the first time, he understood that the universe held stories far larger than a single life. That time and memory were threads linking worlds together. Rian landed smoothly, the hover vehicle settling near the silver wings of his ship. The sun reflected off the frozen plains, creating bands of gold and blue across the landscape. He stepped out, stretching his legs, and looked up at the vast sky. He could see stars faintly shimmering even though the daylight was bright. Something about them felt alive, almost aware. He remembered Solara's words. We were never meant to forget, only to begin again. Inside the ship, Rian reviewed the data he had collected. The recorder contained the signal, the harmonic patterns, and his own memories projected by the temple. The ship's AI ran a cross-check between all the signals. It confirmed something remarkable. The memory fragments stored in the crystal temple had a unique resonance that matched his neural signature exactly. He had not simply witnessed history. Somehow history had been stored within him, waiting to be awakened. Ryan leaned back in his seat, deep in thought. Could humanity truly carry such a connection with a lost alien race? Could memory alone be strong enough to guide them back to the right path? He did not have to wait long to find out. His ship's radar detected something moving across the plains. Distant, small, but undeniably artificial. Ryan felt a thrill of curiosity mixed with caution. He climbed into the cockpit, activating the sensors. What is it? He muttered to himself. The AI responded calmly. Unknown vessels detected. Multiple small objects. Movement suggests exploration or scouting patterns. Ryan studied the screens. The shapes were too small to be large ships, and their energy signature did not match any human craft he had seen. They were alive with light, like the signals he had followed to Solara. He realized immediately that they were searching for something, perhaps the very signals he had discovered. He felt a wave of urgency. If these vessels reached the temple before he could prepare, Solara's message might be lost again. Rian powered up his ship and flew toward the southern temple once more. The crystals beneath him glowed faintly, illuminating the path in gold and silver. As he approached the entrance, the wind seemed to carry another faint whisper, soft as silk. He landed just outside the temple and stepped out, scanning the surroundings. The small vessels hovered above the plains, distant but moving steadily toward the temple. They did not appear threatening, but Rian felt that their purpose could interfere with what he was about to do. He walked into the temple quickly, moving past the glowing pillars and toward the central pool. The light of the water shimmered softly as if welcoming him back. He knelt beside it and placed his hand on the surface. Immediately, a flow of energy rose through him, carrying images of Solara and the past unity they had shared. She appeared again, glowing above the pool. Her voice was gentle but firm. Ryan, the vessels approaching are not dangerous, but they will disrupt the memory if they reach the pool first. You must carry what you have learned now. Time is short. Rian nodded. I understand. But how can I share it with them? They have never seen you, never known this history. Solara's light flickered slightly, a gesture of encouragement. You are the bridge. You carry both the memory of humanity and the Seraph. Speak to them. Show them what is possible. The temple has done its part. Now it is your turn. Rian felt the energy of the temple filling him. The memories were no longer separate from his own thoughts. He felt connected to something larger than himself. The unity between the two species was no longer a story. It was a living truth inside him. He rose, taking a deep breath. Outside, the small vessels had moved closer. Their lights shimmered softly, curious and careful. Ryan guided his hover vehicle toward them, keeping the temple behind him. As he approached, one of the vessels sent out a wave of light that scanned the surroundings. He responded by sending a pattern of light from his ship, the harmonic resonance of the temple memory projecting into the air. The effect was immediate. The vessels hovered in place, their lights pulsing in response. It was as if they recognized the signal, felt it, and acknowledged it. Ryan realized that the memory he carried was not just inside him. It had a presence, a power that could reach out across the stars. He activated the ship's communication system, modulating his voice with the harmonic pattern of the temple. We were never meant to forget, he said, his tone calm and confident. There is history you do not know, a unity between humans and Seraph, a promise we made and a memory that has waited for you to remember. The vessel's lights pulsed in rhythm with his words. A moment later, the largest one opened a small window of light. Inside he saw figures, human explorers, their faces calm but attentive. They were listening, Rian spoke again. This memory is not mine alone. It belongs to all of us. If we forget the lessons of the past, the same mistakes will follow. But if we remember, if we carry unity in our hearts, we can begin again, not as separate worlds, but together. The explorers watched him closely. One of them raised a hand in acknowledgement, then another. Their ship's lights pulsed in harmony with his voice. Rian felt a wave of hope. He thought of Solara, her glowing figure, and the promise she had made. Her voice seemed to echo in the air once more, carried through the memory within him. "You carry the bridge now, Rian. Carry it well." The explorers began to move closer, their ships following the path he had created. Rian guided them carefully across the plains, keeping the temple in view. He knew that their presence would help preserve the memory he carried. As they arrived near the temple, the memory flowed outward from Rian, filling the air with light and sound. The pillars glowed softly, and the pool shimmered like a living heart. The explorers looked on in wonder, their eyes wide as the full vision of unity unfolded before them. Humans and Seralith working together, cities of light, shared knowledge, and a peace that had existed long before the separation. Rian spoke once more, his voice carrying across the plains. "This is our past, our memory, and our future. We must not forget it. We must begin again." The explorers lowered their vessels, absorbing the resonance of the temple memory. They nodded to each other, understanding in their eyes. They could feel the power of the past, the wisdom stored in the memory, and the connection that had waited so long to be awakened. For the first time, Rian felt a sense of completeness. He was no longer alone. He carried Solara's memory, the unity of two species and the hope for a future that could bridge worlds. The wind carried the harmonic hum across the plains, soft and persistent, like a song that could never be forgotten. Solara's voice whispered one last time, barely audible but clear in his mind. "Do not be afraid of what you remember. The past is alive in you. Now it is your turn to carry it forward." Rian nodded. "I understand." He looked at the explorers, their attention fixed on him in the temple. "This memory is not just mine," he said. "It belongs to all of us. Together we can carry it into the stars, and together we can begin again." The light of the temple shimmered one final time. Then it softened, settling into a gentle glow that filled the plains. The vessels reflected the light, and for a moment, the world seemed completely still, as if holding its breath. Rian felt a deep calm. He had faced the mystery, embraced the memory, and understood his purpose. Solara had shown him the truth, and he was ready to carry it forward. Above him, the stars began to shine more brightly, as if welcoming the memory back into the universe. The wind whispered across the plains, gentle and alive, carrying the faint echo of a voice that had waited centuries to be heard. And in that quiet moment, Rian knew that the story of humanity and the Seralith was not lost. It was alive, carried in memory, and ready to guide the next chapter of the universe.